guys. I'm Steve Deal, and I'm one of the OU guys. And I met Art in 1973, about 38 years ago. And I kind of look at it as a measure of your life is the friends you have and the stories you tell. And of everybody I've known, I don't know anyone that had a wider circle of acquaintance, knew more people than Art. You know, he was the guy. We met at OU, and not surprisingly, my room was next to his. At the time, he roomed with a great friend of ours, Wells. And why did we meet? Well, because I was blaring the Stones all the time. You know, it was if you're a Stones fan, you know, it was Yah-Yahs, it was Exile, it was that stuff. And great time. Art to me was always an inviting, open to new experience kind of person. He wanted to meet people, he wanted to know people. He was a magnet for people, honestly. Seemingly everybody wanted to be his friend. Certainly introduced me to the Ramblers, the OU guys. And that's a lasting, forever friendship. And that's the hard thing about Art not being here, because I really always thought, you know, of really Art and those friends is forever. And to me it is forever, but it's hard to acknowledge he's not here. You know, those days, you know, there was this lasting friendship that was being built. And it was building camaraderie and all that goes with that. But the currency in a way was the Stones, because it's brought us together and has made us continue to be, give us a chance and a reason to always be together. I want to thank the Should Do Be Friends, obviously, who've been very important to him. That's something I'm new to, and I think it's really very, very cool. Art was what I consider a cross-pollinator. You know, he was a guy who had a way, because of it, you know, such a bright guy, such a knowledgeable guy, such a always kind of knew the inside stuff guy, always knew people. And when you knew Art, you knew that somehow he was going to open your experience. He was going to broaden your life. And you'll love this, I think, Should Do Be fans and guys, that people here, that one of the things that was big at that time was, because it was all vinyl, was that people who all had a collection would exchange albums. And one of the great things was that Art would always show up with something mind-blowing and different. You know, it was always that way. And the funny part about that is that some of those albums that he used to bring, it had a name on it that he had borrowed from somebody else, and it was Sally Salisbury. Here's my wife. So when I think about it, Art is really, it's a funny thing to look back. You get very introspective about it. But most important people in my life, well, my wife is the most important person in my life. But you know, Art is probably the second most important person in my life, because he introduced me to him. I wouldn't know him. I wouldn't know him. And how it happened was inimitable Art. You know, he'd been sharing these albums. He'd come over to my place, we'd party, we'd hang out, we'd have a great time. And as Art was, he had several, you know, circles of friends. He knew people I didn't. And we lived next door to each other. We'd party till about 5 o'clock. Art would go to dinner with other people who turned out to be these guys. And then afterwards, he'd go out and hang with some other folks. And one of those was this woman, Sally Salisbury. And I would say to him, man, I'd like to meet her. And he was like, yeah, you'd like to meet her. So she, after a quarter there, was going to go off to travel for a quarter, leave school. On her last night there, knock on my door, it's Art. And he's got this woman with him. So that was that. Sal can't be here, but what she wanted to say, you know, in the most respectful way was, she always had a powerful crush on Art. She loved Art. You know, the way they looked at each other, in this, you know, you're my friend and you'll always be my friend way, was just beautiful. I'd love to see them together. I'd love to see them, they're all the Rambler guys. But, you know, it was a beautiful thing. Among other things, you know, Art introduced me to things like different kinds of music, reggae, punk, all that stuff. I've told my OU buds that, you know, I was here the first day he moved to Vegas, which was kind of neat. I knew Joe, and I called Joe, and happened to be here just visiting. And it turns out it was Art's style, because Art was moving from, at the time I think it was West Virginia, where he was working, and he had stopped in Houston. He'd seen Chris, probably Al, our great friend, and then he'd driven to Phoenix. You know, he'd seen Rich, spent time with him. He got here, you know, and I was here. I remember we had a couple of hours together. He told me he was going to make this his home, you know, and it was really cool. Art took me to my first NHL hockey game. You know, Art loved hockey. I mean, he was always doing that. And his brother Joe got us great seats right down on the ice. We watched Penguins play the Bruins, and it was Bobby Hall, and Bobby Orr, all those guys. And Art was, you know, he loved it. He loved it. Another time in Pittsburgh, Joe, we stayed at Joe's place. You know, we love and miss. And he said, we're going to go to the Steelers game. Well, of course, he loved the Steelers. You know, they're great. And this is during their Super Bowl run. And Joe says, you know, come with me, we'll go down together, and, you know, maybe I can do something here. So Joe, to make a long story short, just because Joe was who Joe was, and he knew people, he was a sports writer at the time, got us into the press box, you know, to see the Steelers, which was a great experience. I know Art was so pleased with that. I mean, what a wonderful time. Stones, you know, the first, as I say, modern concert that Art went to, the Stones, we all went to together. In Cleveland, it was a great time. We got there early, all the Ramblers were coming, and it was a lot of fun. Stories, man. I mean, it was great because you were there. We were the first people there, as you can imagine. That's Art, you know, we were the first people there. We were there like a day before the show. And the person, and all the Rambler people were coming. We had a friend whose name was Sue, and she was very attractive. And eventually it was just me and Art and Sue there. And a news crew from the Cleveland local station came down. They were going to do an interview with Stones fans. And somebody said, hey, those guys were here first. So they came over, and they talked to Art and I. And they were we thought, hey, we're going to be on TV. This is going to be great. So they talked to us. And then, just at the last second, the camera guy says, he goes, hey, come over here. We're going to interview this blonde. And I remember Art looked at him. You know, Art, he looked at me, he'd go like that. You know, what did you do about that? That double take. And we both walked off like, you know, we got trumped, you know, but we were there first. We were there first. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. But it was, you know, Art had that way, and his double take, as you know, was just classic, and he was just, what? How could this be? It was hilarious. We had a great time. You know, when I think of Art, you know, I think beloved, respected. To know Art was really to feel connected. You know, when you were with him, you really felt like you were someplace. That was fun. And certainly we will always miss him. He was a classic, you know, he was a great person. I'm really proud, very proud to be a friend of. For you guys who are Stones fans, you'll be interested that back in the day, when we listened to Stones, one of our great, or all music, one of the things that Art was interested in was, what's the most intense? You know, what's like the top, what's the best? So going back then, in OU, 1973 or 4, it was the Side of Exile that has Soul Survivor and All Down the Line and Stop Breaking Down. We played that endlessly. And if you want to know, at that time, All Down the Line was our favorite back then. But the song that we thought was most intense was Soul Survive, of all. So you know that. I remember the day we heard the Brussels thing live on King Biscuit Flower Hour. I remember we listened to my place, and there was this panic because we wanted to record it. It was so good. I remember scrambling around trying to find something to put it up. I mean, you know, just great stuff. So that goes back, way back. My friend Al, who couldn't be here, certainly sends his love, as I do. Kathy and you and Andre and Nicole. And I said, give me a word about art. And he just said, hey, friendship. And yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. And again, that art was better than any of us at keeping that thing alive, keeping people coming together, for which we're all so thankful. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. And, I do love him so.